Well, good afternoon, everybody, and thank you so much for joining us for Let's Start the Conversation. There's just a few of us here to start with, but I do want to start this session promptly because this is a 40-minute session and I want to make sure that we get everything done. So welcome to our trustee for the My Body is My Body Foundation, Dee Russell Thomas, and also to Jai Prakash, yes. Thank you so much for joining us. And I am recording this so that we can play it to everyone on YouTube and on LinkedIn. So don't worry if you haven't been able to join us, you'll be able to watch it as soon as we put it up. So I'm going to share my screen and I am going to just discuss what we're doing today. We're talking about keeping children safe on the internet. And it's a massive thing at the moment. So being a parent in today's world can be a really difficult task with trying to keep up with the latest apps and games. So we're going to discuss a few tips that can give you some tools that will help you protect your child from inappropriate content and online groomers. So first of all, we want you to set up your parental controls on your Broadband. Very, very, very important. So filter the web browsers showing only pre-approved websites. Limit what your child can search for online. Control or block video games your child can access by setting age parameters. And you can also manage the types of videos that your child can search for. So take the time to do this. It is well worth it because you never know what your child will be accessing. And you can find out how to set your parent controls on Internet Matters. If you just type in internetmatters.com, you will find a wealth of information there. Setting up your child's phone. Disable in-app purchasing so your child doesn't inadvertently run up large bills. I've heard of parents having 400, 500 pound bills because they haven't disabled the in-app purchasing. Very, very important. Set child-safe search engines that your child can use, like swiggle.org.uk or kidssearch.com. I will be putting this video, this PDF on LinkedIn and our other social media sites. So don't worry if I'm going too quick for you. Also set the safety mode on YouTube, iTunes, and Google Play so that you know that your child is watching appropriate content. Also block pop-ups to stop the inappropriate content. Pop-ups can have anything from, well, just anything on them. And if you haven't blocked the pop-ups, your child could be watching any type of explicit material. Again, there's another place you can check up on the Google Safety Center for more information. Lots and lots of great ideas and tips on the Google Safety Center. Now, as soon as your child has access to the internet, it would be best if you started having conversations. And this is what our theme is today, is having conversations with your child about things they may encounter. You know, there is so much stuff on the internet, and even as safety conscious as you may be, they still may find inappropriate material. I heard one lady saying that their child was typing in fairies and up popped some images of nude people. So even as I say, as safety conscious as you may be, your child may still find stuff. So you need to have this conversation with them. So talk to them about coming to talk to you or one of their safe adults if they find inappropriate images, or if you're talking to a young child and you don't know how to explain about pornography, they may be too young. So just tell them sometimes there are people, pictures of people with no clothes on, we can put it in a good way that we're not scaring them. So if you see any pictures with people with no clothes on, come and tell me. If they come across anything on the internet that they don't understand or that upsets them, tell them to come talk to you. Or if somebody they don't know tries to engage with them on social media or on a game, or if they encounter anything inappropriate. So make sure when you're talking to them that you are calm and you are reassuring, so that they will continue to come and talk to you. If we fly off the handle when our children come and talk to us about these kind of things, they're going to stop talking to you and just keep quiet about it. And the biggest thing we want to do is to enable them to share this content with you, so that you can, one, report it, and two, talk to them so that you can make sure they understand what they've seen and that they shouldn't be looking at that sort of stuff, but to tell you about it. Hang on a second, let me just, yeah, if everyone can just mute, that would be wonderful. Okay, so keeping your children safe. You may think that your child is safe because you've put all the safety parameters on your broadband, on their telephone, on their PCs, whatever they're watching. But when your child goes and visits their grandparents, a lot of time grandparents haven't got their devices protected. So it's wise to either ask your parents or your family members to add safety filters on before they give their devices to your child. It's just something that we don't think of. We go and visit granny and grandpa or auntie and uncle, and they don't have children in the house, so they don't think to put the safety devices on. So just remind people that don't give them your phone or your tablet unless you've enabled. The other thing is, speak to your child about what they might see on other children's phones, because although you may protect your child, other people may not. And there's been several instances of children in school showing inappropriate content to other children. So again, start the conversation. Say if anybody shows you content that makes you feel uncomfortable, or as I say, when maybe there's people with no clothes on, please come tell me about it. I won't get angry. We just need to discuss it. Also make sure your parental controls are on sites like Netflix, Disney, Apple, BBC iPlayer, because there's so many programs on these sites where there is inappropriate content. So, and apart from sexually, Carol, can you mute, love? We can hear some background stuff. Thanks, love. Thank you. Apart from sexually explicit programs, there's also a high level of violence in many of these programs. So the parental controls on your streaming devices are important. Also, many games have a multiplayer aspect to them and may be based entirely online. These games allow your child to be vulnerable to abuse from other players. They may also be subjected to sexual advances. So make sure the program is set to friends only, if that's available, and check out all of these games to make sure that the safety parameters are on. Just a little bit of advice: exploring sites and apps with children is a great way to, one, find out about their interests, and also an excellent way to find out if the apps they are using are safe and age appropriate. These online activities may increase the possibility that a child could see inappropriate content. So make sure if they're joining social networks, make sure that they are the minimum age. There's a lot of parents that say, oh, you know, I know they're 8, but I'll let them have a Facebook or a Instagram account. There's so much inappropriate material on these on these networks. We need to make sure the kids are old enough, and also making sure that we're playing games, using apps which are age appropriate, and again, watching the live streams with inappropriate content. A lot of it's to do with just taking the time to not only do it in your home, but to make sure that the other people where your child goes and plays, that those people have got their parameters set to the safety networks. Because, as I say, your child may see all sorts of things. There is just so much on the internet, and we can't monitor everything. So we have to do our best, but please talk to your child. Dee, before we start with Holly's presentation, let me just stop sharing. Have you got a few words to share with us about this subject? Just unmute you. You're on mute.
Newfangled laptop, you see, but it's working well. I had to find where the mute was. I would just endorse everything you have said. It's so important. You know, it's important for young people right the way through to the elderly. I was recently talking to a neighbour of mine who had lost thousands and thousands and thousands of pounds by being scammed on the internet. And yesterday I was at a poetry event, and I'd actually done a poem on, it was called Cold Callers Make Me Hot Under the Collar, because there are problems there too. I endorse totally what you're saying. You know that half of our 10-year-olds have a smartphone. You know that 70% of our 12 to 15-year-olds have a social media profile, and that Snapshot is the biggest. And people like myself, according to my children and grandchildren, tell me that Facebook is history now. It's trying to keep up with all the new media and all the new platforms that are coming into play, because what we might use is not necessarily what our children and our grandchildren are using. Children between the ages of 5 and 15 years are spending at least 14 hours a week online. That's at least 2 hours a day. And I certainly know that when I was working in schools, that some of the students were totally addicted to the phone. They went to bed with the phone, and when their parents tried to take it away, they were quite hysterical. It was an addiction. So the key thing is, as you've said, Chrissy, is talk. This is our let's have a conversation. But actually, we need to have the conversation with the children. Maybe we need to talk about what is a friend. Do we really know somebody through the media? Do we know these people? I was saying to Lisa only the other day, I don't know who you are, Lisa. I don't know whether you're really a 90-year-old man in Sweden. Those sorts of things, we don't actually know the truth. We think we do. So we need to talk about it. Talking about whether we really know people or not. Are they real people? Can we be sure? What is the worst scenario? What is normal behavior? What's potentially dangerous? What are the warning signs? Who should they tell if they're worried? Who should they trust if they're worried? And who's going to believe them? And belief is really important in all of this. So just as we now are having this conversation, we have to have the conversations with our children face to face, and not be frightened and not be embarrassed and not be discouraged. But also we've got to find a balance between telling them, talking about it, and not putting the fear of God in them, because actually there are good people around as well, but being realistic. I think we have to forewarn, forearm, prepare, add caution, and give them knowledge. So we need to have the conversation, which should be as natural as us saying, do not put your hand in the fire, it will burn you.
Yeah.
We're twice about saying those sorts of things. We have to now transfer that sort of conversation to what we've always considered to be a wee bit more taboo. a bit more difficult, a bit more embarrassing for parents. But we must be able to say, just like fire, the dangers of what might happen, not that it will happen. You're not saying never light a fire because actually you will burn to death. Nobody says that. A little bit the same with alcohol. You don't say to teenagers, a lot of people don't say, some people do, but you might not say, never ever take a drink because you will become an alcoholic, because that's not necessarily a truth. And once you start confusing fact with what might be an exaggeration, you've lost the children. They will never listen to you because they will be thinking, actually, she didn't tell the truth on that. She just tried to scare us. So I think it's really important to keep to facts and to be rational about it and talk about the what might be's. I mean, maybe we can have games, lighter games, which are the sorts of questions, what would you do if? And then go on to slightly heavier things. You know, what would you do if someone online said that they wanted to actually meet you in the flesh? And then you talk about discussing and disclosing and that sort of thing. When somebody online, maybe your boyfriend, asks you to take photographs of yourself fully clothed, would you do that? In your swimming costume, would you do that? In your underwear, would you do that? Naked. And you can see the levels of what if, what if, what if. And if you received photographs of your schoolmates that was inappropriate, would you then share that around the whole school? Would you think that was correct? I think it's those sorts of conversations, meaningful, truthful conversations that we need to have. And then moving on to maybe the pornography, which I know is going to be talked about later, what is and isn't acceptable? Because the difficulty also is the boundaries that we have in age, in genders, in cultures, in religion, and all those aspects come into play. And we need to just be open about it, discussing what our boundaries are, what is personal space, what are our values, and maybe putting together as a family a safety plan. And there are plenty of these online that you can find, and looking at maybe the SMART plan, which talks about S for smart, which is actually about secrets and when you tell secrets. We're not talking about surprises, we're talking about secrets. And M, SM, M for mates. Always take someone with you when you're going someplace. And A for always tell somebody else where you're going. And R for respect, respecting your body, respecting other people's bodies and your privacy and your personal space. And T, finally, tell someone you trust. Those are my key issues that I think just reinforce everything that you have said also, Chrissy.
Thanks,
so
Steve.
Thank you for the opportunity.
That's brilliant. You covered a wealth of information there. I'm going to go straight on to Holly. What's going to happen is I might have to just end it a little bit early, the video with Holly, but I will add it to the video when I put this out, because we're going to run out of time to present her full video. But she is an amazing lady, and I will just play the video now for you. We did this a little bit earlier because Holly's in Australia and it's 3 o'clock in the morning, so I didn't think she'd really want to she'd want to talk at 3 o'clock in the morning. So let me just share this here, and I hope you enjoy the conversation with her. Here we go. Well, today we have a very amazingly special guest for you, and I'm so excited. It's my friend Holly Martin from all the way from Australia. Holly was awarded this year, very specially, the Order of Australia Medal for the Queen's Birthday Honours List for her contribution to child safety. She's the manager and founder of Safe for Kids, which does fantastic Absolutely fantastic work. For 35 years, she's developed resources and delivered programs, preventative programs to combat child sexual abuse through Safe for Kids. And since 2010, around 4,500 children and 1,000 teachers and educators and 1,000 parents have received her training annually. Holly's empowered children throughout the world and equips parents and educators with the tools to help prevent child abuse, whether it's through physical harm, cyberbullying, or inappropriate content on the internet. So whereas My Body is My Body program is very much an introductory program to try and just get people even to talk about the subject, Holly goes much further into depth, into child abuse and the subject that we're going to talk about today, which is pornography. Now, exposure to pornography is inevitable. So it's necessary to prevent our children to that exposure. I mean, everyone has the internet, everybody has access or could unexpectedly find themselves looking at pornography at some time, and that includes our children. So when interviewed, parents and children think an appropriate age is 14 to 15. But numerous studies have been done on the harm of early exposure to pornography to children. The commissioner here has urged parents to talk to their children at 9 or 10, but Holly thinks that we should be doing it a lot earlier. So Holly, why do you think we should talk to children at a really early age about pornography? And after that, can you describe how we would even approach the subject?
Yeah, definitely. Well, thanks for having me on for a start. It's something I'm really passionate about because I'm seeing more and more, as you mentioned in the intro, I stand in front of about 4,500 children. And even last year with COVID, I still stood in front of 3,500 children from 3 to 17. And in my experience, it's not a case of if kids see it, it's when kids see it. And I'm hearing more and more from very young children. In fact, I was in a school yesterday and, for instance, 35 kids out of about 100 children, grade 1s and 2s, so 6 and 7-year-olds, were on TikTok for a start. The teachers' faces went, they were just blown away. When I brainstorm with children, I don't call it pornography because I believe that we need to start by 6. And I don't call it pornography with 6-year-olds. I call them private pictures or private movies. And it's done as the public and private lesson. So we talk about public and private rooms and places, and then things you do with your body that's private, and then pictures. And then we finally get onto body parts. But when I'm brainstorming, where might kids see pictures or movies with people with no clothes on? 5-year-olds can tell me YouTube's first, TikTok second, and then it's iPhones, iPads, Netflix, Instagram, Snapchat. I was in a school and a little 5-year-old put up a hand and said, Snapchat, miss. And I said, sweetie, you're 5. How do you know about Snapchat? Oh, my foot, and your sister's using it? Obviously for sending nudes, because how did a 5-year-old know that? And then I was in a very affluent school and a 5-year-old put up a hand and said, oh, it's easy, miss. You just ask Siri. Goodness, don't be asking Siri to find you pictures. And then I do a lot of work in remote Aboriginal communities, and a dear little 5-year-old little boy put up his hand. It's easy, Holly. You just type in XXX. And so I don't put the words in these children's mouths. They tell me. And so children, 6-year-olds love brain science. So when they're 6, the way that I do it is I've actually written 2 children's books to help have these conversations. So one of them's the red one up the back. So I pull that out and I say to the children, we're going to pretend this is an iPad. And I type in fairies, but a picture of a lady with no clothes on and big fairy wings comes up. What should I do about that? And a dear little boy put up his hand and said, well, Holly, I would type in fairies with clothes on.
Brilliant.
I just love what comes out of children's mouths.
That's great.
Not that easy, son. Sorry about that.
Yeah, because
But
the whole thing, Holly, is that we don't want to, with any child abuse prevention subjects, you know, sexual abuse or anything like that, we don't ever want to take children's innocence away from them. We want to protect their innocence.
yeah.
Do you
And
find that parents are not approaching
They-
this subject?
Not at all, not at all. And they think if we talk about it, we'll turn it onto them. It's the same as, you know, if we talk about sex, then they'll go out and have sex. We know we've got, you know, enough studies done that, you know, we look at Holland and places like that where they teach sex education from very early, and we know they have the lowest teen pregnancy rates in the world, because education, you know, good education prevents that.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's not a case of if kids see it, it's when kids see it. And if I had $1 for every parent that said to me, my child would never look at pornography,
Yeah.
They don't need to go looking for it. It will find them.
But children are inquisitive.
But also the porn industry is, you know, putting stuff where kids go, like fairies, or, you know, if you type in any innocent thing into Google Images, eventually naked pictures will come up.
Yeah.
And so they do that to get around filters, because if a child, you know, if a family's got any filtering system, if the kids typed in sex or bottom or something like that, it will be blocked. But that's why I use the example of typing in fairies and the lady with no clothes on but with fairy wings comes up, because that's actually happened. I've actually seen that myself. And so it's to get around the filtering system. So parents also say, my children don't go on iPads. We've got all the, you know, protection up the wazoo. It's all very well and good, but the kid next door doesn't. The kid across the road doesn't. The kid on the bus is going to. And recently I've had quite a few parents telling me how children have brought phones to school. And in fact, I interviewed some police officers to help me with a resource talking about grooming. And one of the female police officers told me how her 6-year-old daughter came home from school on a Friday and said how a boy at school had told the whole class, when you're a grown-up, you've got to kiss a girl on the fanny. And so, and all the kids are going, you're disgusting, you're rude, you're awful, and just shot him down. So on the Monday, he brought mum's phone to school and showed the whole class. And then, because she's a police officer, she went to school on the Tuesday and said to the principal, what's going on? Why haven't we had a note about this? You know, and he said, oh, I can't control what children bring to school.
It's crazy.
So this is why we have to.
The thing is also with grandparents, I've found that grandparents don't particularly have the filters on their phones. So the child will go to the grandparents and start having a look at all the things, and children are inquisitive, you know.
Yep, and that's one of the other places that children, when we're brainstorming, they'll say either at the grandparents' house, and I've even had a young fellow put up his hand and said on a plane. And a week later, I happened to be on an aeroplane sitting next to a guy who was watching Game of Thrones, very graphic, you know, the early season stuff. And I've gone, that's what that kid was telling me, that, you know, he was sitting next to somebody on a plane who was watching it. And so, you know, I know of people watching it on the bus and things like that, you know, adults watching it on a public transport.
We've just had one of our MPs thrown out of Parliament because he was watching pornography in Parliament, you know. So, you know, it's prevalent, and I think we have to engage with children. There's a story about a little 6-year-old who went to her mom and said, what is sex? And she said, oh, we're not talking about that. So what did she do? She went and she typed sex into the phone. We have to engage in these conversations, even if it makes us feel uncomfortable, but we don't have to get graphic with children. And again,
not at all.
I'm very, very adamant about keeping children's innocence. So we just have to show them that if you find anything like that, you have to tell me, because it's not pictures that you should be looking at.
And also, when I'm doing parent workshops, parents will say to me, what, you know, you're taking away their innocence, which of course I'm not. But when I talk about pornography with adults, they go back to their childhood and think about the Playboy under the big brother's bed or in dad's
It's not
cupboard.
the same, is it?
That is not what
It's
kids are seeing.
very tame.
We know that, you know, in the pornography that's produced nowadays, 88% of it is violence against women. There is no kissing, there is no foreplay, there's no pleasure for women, there's no consent. And when I'm working with 14-year-old young men in high school, they tell me they're watching 2 hours a week of pornography.
Wow.
Now, if they're going to admit to 2 hours, they're watching
a lot more. Yes. Yes.
But I say, boys, why would you look at that? Oh, to learn technique, Holly, to learn style. And I say, well, let me stop you right there. Not the right technique and there's no style. But I explain to them about how, and I don't ever come at it from a moralistic point of view or a religious point of view. It's science. And 6-year-olds love brain science. And so I explain to them, our brains are amazing. And you know how we have to put healthy food into our body to grow up big and strong? We need to put healthy pictures into our minds to grow up big and strong. And in our brain, we've got millions and millions of connections. But if you see pictures or movies with people with no clothes on, it changes the connections in your brain. It rewires it. And I explained to them that it releases a chemical in your brain called dopamine. And if I'm running around, my brain will create a little bit of dopamine to say, hey, Holly, keep running around. Or if I eat chocolate, a little bit of dopamine to say, have another chocolate. But if you see pictures or movies of people with no clothes on, it's like a flood of this dopamine in your brain, and your brain loves it. But that's what makes you go back and look at more and more of it. So it's not about frightening them. And when I do this thing with the book, I say, I need you to turn it over and I need you to go and show it to an adult. Now, I used to say, go and tell an adult, until I actually had an experience myself where here in Australia, we had just gone into lockdown. It was April 2020. And I was in my office and somebody had come across some heinous child exploitation material on Instagram and didn't know how to deal with it. So they've just tagged at Safe for Kids, which is me, at FBI, at Centre for Missing and Exploited Children. And so I get messages all the time, as you would, and I just open up this random message, could not believe what I was seeing. So I burst into tears. I still had enough wherewithal to go, right, well, I need to take a screenshot of his face, but not what he was doing, a screenshot of the Instagram account. I go back out to take a screenshot of who had sent it, but somehow it had disappeared already. And then I went onto our federal police's website and made a report, and I saw all this stuff. And by the way, I've got pictures. And I hit submit. I go up into our house because my office is in the bottom of our garden. And I explained to my husband exactly what I saw. And through my tears, I'm sobbing and going, it was horrible. And I finished what I was saying. And he sat there going, oh, yeah. What do you mean? Oh, yeah. That happened over 2 years ago, and I still have flashbacks about every 6 weeks or so. That picture will just pop into my mind and I just burst into tears.
Yeah, I can understand.
So as an adult, I see it now as a blessing, as horrible as it was as the flashbacks, because it made me realize that if I can't articulate to my husband what I saw, how is a child supposed to articulate to a parent what they saw?
Yeah.
And kids are having flashbacks, even though they don't know what they're called. They say, Holly, that picture just pops into my mind and I keep thinking about it and thinking about it. And I actually had a counsellor from the other side of Australia, because I'm in Western Australia, but a counsellor from Sydney contact me about some other resources that they were chasing. And he said, look, Holly, I just want to check this by you. I've been talking with this young 10-year-old. I've had 5 sessions with her, but I cannot get to the bottom of what she won't go to sleep at night. She just will not close her eyes, and she just stays up as long as she physically can, and then she just crashes and goes to sleep. But I've had 5 sessions and I can't get to the bottom of it. I've talked to all of my colleagues, everybody I know. I've asked, I said, easy. Ask if she's seen pictures or movies with people with no clothes on. He rings me back and said, how did you know?
Yeah.
How did you know? It's not one of my colleagues it's not on our radar. We just did not think of that situation. I said, I'm dealing with it all the time. You know, the amount of contacts I get from parents looking for resources and help because their children have seen stuff and they're having these nightmares, or children are believing that dad's doing that to mum and things like that.
I know
So
it just gives such a wrong perception of what a relationship is and what love is to children. I mean, it's just horrific that they're even seeing any of this. But as you say, all you need is one child in the class that has got access. You can protect your child as much as possible, which is why we have to have these conversations. You know, just like, if anybody ever shows you any pictures of people with no clothes on, please come tell me. You know, I won't get angry with you. It's okay, but you do need to tell me if anyone shows you. So it's like we call this program, Let's Start the Conversation. We are starting the conversation with our child and because children know when things are wrong and they don't want to come and talk to you. It's like if they're being abused or somebody's touching them, they're scared to come and talk to you unless you say to them, it's okay to come and talk to me. If somebody touches you inappropriately or makes you feel uncomfortable or shows you pictures, come talk to me. That's all we need to do. We don't need to go into detail, but just make sure that they know you will talk to them about any of these problems.
And that they won't take the device away. Every child tells me if somebody talks privately to them, I don't call it rude because I try to get rid of the word rude because with rude comes shame. But if somebody talks to them privately, or if somebody sends them private pictures, they won't tell a parent because they think their parent's going to take the device away.
Yes.
So one of the things I beg parents not to do, and I did a workshop last night, and I said, parents, please don't use devices as a behavior management tool.
As a threat, yeah.
Clean your room or I'll take your iPad away. Stop fighting with your sister, I'm going to take your iPad away. Because, you know, then if they see something, they know you're going to take it away. So they'd rather you cut off their arm and take their device.
Yeah.
And so, and the other ramification of children seeing, as you know, private pictures of movies is child exhibiting harmful sexual behavior or child-to-child sexual abuse is on the increase because of kids seeing this. So I also had to write a book about that because I had a principal contact me from Queensland. In the 2 months prior to him ringing me, he had 6 separate cases of children touching other children in his school. And he was looking for a resource and I couldn't find anything. So he told me of a story of a little boy caught in the boys' toilets doing other things to children. So he supported the little fellow and his family and the other kids and the other parents, but these parents turned on the family and ran them out of the school. So then they go to another local school. These parents ring the parents at the new school and said, did you know you've got a pedophile in your school? He's not a pedophile. He's just a little boy that doesn't know the rules. So that's why I called my book.
Learning.
I just called my book, Gary didn't know the rules. And so the book teaches that there are 5 private rules. No one's allowed to touch your private parts unless it's for medical or hygiene reasons. And if somebody did, it wouldn't be your fault. You're not allowed to touch anybody else's private parts. If you do, you're breaking the law. No one's allowed to show you private pictures. No one's allowed to take private pictures of you, and you're not allowed to take private pictures of yourself. Because according to our federal police, we've got children as young as 4 getting their iPads and taking pictures of their private parts. And quite often it's because they've got siblings doing it, older siblings doing it, and they're copying them.
Copying them, yeah. Yeah, we have to have these conversations because children need to know their boundaries. That's what we have to teach them as parents and as teachers and as communities. What is acceptable, what is not acceptable. And as you say, when they're watching what's going on the internet, they're just copying. And we have to address these. What I'm going to do is, because we've done this session beforehand, because Holly's got an amazingly busy schedule, if you want to ask questions, please either send them to me personally or ask underneath the video, and I will get Holly to answer them. And I'll also put some links to Holly's books, because she writes some amazing books and some really important books that will help you with your child. And so yes, we will put all that underneath. But Holly, if you were talking to a parent right now, what would you say? Just give them 2 or 3 things that you would tell them to tell their child to protect them.
I want them to say, I want parents to be their child's Google. Don't ever tell your child to Google it. If you hear something in the playground, please come and ask me. Don't go on to Google to find it. I learned this from a young 18-year-old actually, who and if your listeners want to, I've got loads of, on my YouTube channel, loads of interviews and stuff. And one of them I did with a young man from America who at 16, so 2 years ago, I interviewed him, and then I interviewed him just recently. He feels he was addicted to porn, and he's on a crusade to stop it as well. He's an amazing young man. And he said in his family that they had something called the no trouble bubble. And so if families could set this up, I would be really happy. So a child comes to you and says, Mum or Dad, I'm going to call the no trouble bubble. Something's happened, whether it was they were suspended from school or, something's happened. So the idea is the children tell the adult what's happened, and the adult is not allowed to react. They just have to stay calm. The child gets a 8-second hug. They get told they're loved, and then it's dealt with the next day after everybody's got a good night's sleep. Now, parents aren't going to get a good night's sleep. They're going to be going over it in their head. I know that. But the thing is, it is so important because, I do this all the time. I'll have words with my husband in the morning, say before I go to work, about something. And as I'm driving home, I'm going to, right, when we get home, we're going to have this out. And I'm going to say this, and he's going to come back with that. And then I'm going to stick it with that. And then I have the conversation, and it doesn't go like that. No,
it never goes like you think it's going to go.
So I want parents to be able to have I need parents to be their children's go-to person, because people that prey on children, whether it's online or offline, they look for vulnerable children and available children. A child that's online is both automatically. And so one of the things we do with children is we set up a safety team of 5 people they can talk to. And on the thumb are people from their home, and then either 2 people from school or 2 people from daycare, and then 2 people from the community. So aunts and uncles, grandparents, next door neighbours, people from church. There's lots of different people on those 2 fingers. But I need children, because because I work with so many children, last year, whenever I said to the children, on your home, I want you to set up somebody from your family. In every class I did this last year, I had a child saying, Holly, I don't want anybody from my family on my safety team. Mum's always on Facebook, or Dad comes to my cricket match and he never watches. So kids are feeling really disconnected.
Yeah.
And I want parents to be their child's Google. I want them to be connected with their children, because heaven forbid, should anything happen to them, I need them to be able to go and, talk about this stuff.
Absolutely.
And then the other thing I'll share with you, I've got a free poster of what to do if a child does disclose that something's happened. I'm happy for people to share that far and wide. So I'll send you the link to that to put in the notes.
Send me all your links, Holly, because, it's important that we get these messages out. And if a child does ever reveal anything to you, please stay calm. The worst thing you can ever do to a child is to blow up and, threaten or do whatever, as hard, as terribly hard as a parent. I know, when your kid comes to you with something, you feel like exploding, but you have to just keep calm for the sake of your child. And then, as Holly says, maybe try and have a good night's sleep, and then try and get to grips with everything the next day. But don't blow up, don't get angry. Holly, it's been wonderful, and I'd love to have you back again on this show, because we have a show every 2 months, and we talk about all the things that people don't want to talk about. So we're starting the conversations, the difficult conversations about all things about children and keeping them safe. So keep up the amazing work. Congratulations on your wonderful award. And as I say, we'd love to have you back, and we'll share all your amazing links at the end of the show. And
Lovely.
We'll get hold of you for any comments that you may need. Okay. So
Lovely.
thank you, Holly. And
Bye.
we'll see you again. Thank you.
Cheers.
Right. Well, I think there was a lot of information there that was, yeah, her work is amazing, and I'm really pleased to have her on our network and sharing all her information. I think this is what it's going to take. It takes us all to work together. You know, I find it's very strange that certain areas of protecting children are very private and they sort of keep to themselves. But I'm a firm believer in networking and sharing our information and sharing our goals and sharing what works. You know, we've got to find out what works, and what might work in England might not work in Nigeria. You know, we've got to find what works with the kids in their countries. And it's a big job, but we need to do more, and we need to network more, and we need to share more, and we need to talk more. So thank you so much for joining us, and I will be putting this on LinkedIn and Facebook and YouTube, and so if you would all help to share it, would be wonderful. Have anybody got any questions or anything they'd like to say before we finish off our session for today?
Yeah, I think the danger of all this, one of the key things is the normalization of any aspect of pornography. And just because a lot of people see it, that never makes something right. And to normalize it, particularly, as I was saying, for boys, they then believe that that's what's expected of them. And they believe that women expect it of them. And women also believe that that's the expectation that they should put up with. And I think the more we keep this quiet, the less we talk about it, the less we have the conversations, we can't redress that imbalance. No. We've got to talk to our children. We've got to forewarn them. We've got to tell them what is out there in order for them to know that that is out there, but when you see it, it isn't right. Just as we would do for anti-racism, for misogyny, for whatever. But the trouble is, with anything to do with sex, there's a huge taboo area, and many adults, many parents, grandparents are scared to talk about it. And I think, as Holly said, they're really frightened that if you talk about something, it will encourage people to do it. And that's a real danger, but we don't do it for alcohol and other things. Absolutely not, as was shown in Holland statistics.
Yeah.
Just want to say wonderful video, and it's been a pleasure as always to attend these, and I would encourage everyone across the world to come on to the next My Body is My Body video and support.
Thank you, Carol. You're always an amazing support. Thank you.
Thank you, Dee.
Anyone else?
Thank you so very much, everyone, and good to have attended together with my daughter Patience here in Kenya. Very insightful video. We always hear say that child protection, it takes a whole village to bring up a child. So exactly. We are a village as we are here now, and we need to take care of our children and protect them. Patience would like to just say hi.
Okay.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, Patience.
Hi, Patience.
Thank you so much for joining us, love. I hope you've learned some good things about keeping safe today.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, thank
Thank you all. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kavita, for joining us.
Hi, thank you. Thank you so much. And I'm looking forward to explore this video and share it further. So just to quickly tell you that I am a co-founder of a school in the southern part of this country. And I have already encouraged 2 of my teachers to pursue MBIMB course, and they are doing it.
Oh,
Because I
wonderful.
feel that this is a wonderful initiative and this has to go on and it has to spread all over.
Oh, thank you, Kavita.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for joining us, and thanks for encouraging your teachers to take the courses. I appreciate that. Jack Kapresh, thank you for joining us.
Thank you. That's a wonderful session. Keep these kind of sessions.
Thank you so much. It's really important that we do that.
Yeah.
And when we put the videos out, if you'll share them with your networks, and I think parents are so busy, and as a parent of 5 kids, I know how hard it is to raise kids and work and run a house and cook and clean and everything, and sometimes things slip, but it's just something that every parent is just going to have to take the time to check and speak and make sure, as I say, with grandparents and aunts and uncles and that their children are protected. Because as Holly says, once the kids have seen these pictures, these inappropriate pictures on the web, and they will see them at some stage, we've got to put plans in place, 1, to protect them, and 2, if they do see them, what to do to deal with it if they do, and to deal with it in the correct way so that it doesn't harm the child for their future life. So yeah, we'll do some more. We've got another one in 2 months' time, and we'll have a load more great information, and hopefully another nice speaker to share some of their wealth of information. So thank you.
It's so useful though, Chrissy, because we're talking always about empowering children. But one of the big issues is we need to empower the adults and the parents, and they don't feel empowered to have these conversations. So this sort of conversation, if it's shared with enough adults who can then share it on with other people, will enable them to feel more empowered. Because one of the reasons that people don't talk about this is because it's ignorance on the part of the adults, it's fear, it's embarrassment because it's a kind of dirty taboo area, it's a lack of knowledge and a lack of awareness that actually these dangers are greater than you could possibly imagine. And if we can empower and educate the adults, then we have a chance of reaching the children so that we can have open and honest conversations without the children feeling they're going to be negative repercussions upon them.
Absolutely. And as you say, it is because I think there's a naivety in parenting that it's not ever going to happen to my child. It's like no one's going to abuse my child because I look after them properly, and they've got to get past the feeling of that they've done something wrong. It's usually out of, as I say, naivety, that you trust people, or you trust that your child is never going to see pornography on the internet or inappropriate content. And
leaving it to chance. And yet, interestingly,
exactly.
We're talking about adults constantly leave this aspect of child rearing to chance, or to the schools, or to anybody else but themselves. But they would never do the same for road safety.
Yeah.
And it should be the same.
Yes, it should be. But I think we need some more centralized, great information. The problem, I think, in a way, is there's not sort of distinct information to go for. You've got to look for it. You know, we're trying to get out there with our information and say, you know, here's something you can do, here's something you do. But we can only reach a certain amount of people, maybe through LinkedIn or maybe through Facebook or something like that. But every parent should be able to get onto the internet and find what they need immediately, not have to spend an hour looking for it. And I think that's the big thing, you know.
Or even before that, you don't know what you don't know. So actually, they're not going to look at it if they don't realize that that's what they ought to be doing.
Yes. Yeah, a very good point, Dee. You know, and again, it's the naivety of my child is okay.
Yeah.
My, you know, nobody would ever sexually abuse my child. You know, it's a naive feeling, and we have to show people that every child is at risk in a way, because we all leave our children with people that we trust. Yeah. And we all have our children on their phones and their tablets and their internet. They're going to be subjected to something at some time. So we have to be prepared. So thank you all for joining us. I think it's been a little bit of an eye-opener for some people, and hopefully some great information there to help keep children safe, to help parents, as Dee says, help parents learn a little more about trying to keep their children safe and talking to their children about important information. So thank you. I will have this on our social media soon, and we'll see you in a couple of months' time for another Let's Start the Conversation. Thanks very much, everybody.
Thanks, Chrissy.
Excellent.
Excellent.
Bye.
Bye.